to the Hendrick Hudson Board of
5 minutes or
Education
less.
meeting. Tonight is Wednesday, March 27th, 2019.
We're so bad.
Can we please stand and pledge allegiance to the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I please have a motion to approve the agenda? Can I please have a motion to approve?
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
Oh,
Carol, you.
Ask her.
they
Okay.
did.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have anything they want to pull from the consent agenda? Then can I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
One abstention.
Okay.
Okay. Items removed from the consent agenda is our donation. We have one donation for $500. This donation was made possible through PepsiCo Foundation. Those funds will purchase 2 wireless mics and headphones, so thank you, PepsiCo. We sincerely appreciate it. Yeah.
From
Cheers.
now on, only Pepsi
That's
products.
good, very good. Okay, well, can I please have a motion to accept the donations?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we are on audience comments.
You abstain? Okay.
The Board of Education welcomes public comments at this portion of the meeting. Each speaker will be permitted 3 minutes for their comments and must be recognized by the board clerk. All comments must be directed to the board. The board will listen to comments and input, but will not necessarily debate or discuss items. Operational matters will be directed to the school administration for handling. The board is not permitted to address personnel or individual student matters in open session. The board will limit repetitive comments in order to give time to others wishing to speak. Thank you very much. Do we have anybody signed up to speak?
No, we do not.
Then we can move to the superintendent's report.
Number of updates relevant for many different audiences. On March 9th, HenHud Live took place at the Factoria. A number of board members were there and staff. It was thankfully a night that we all had full power and we didn't have ice storm and windstorm. To date, they have raised over $17,000 and more money is still coming in. So that is an outstanding effort, and we thank our HenHud Live planning team as well as the Education Foundation for supporting that.
And the people who went.
And the people who went and donated and all the good stuff. Spring sports have begun. Our baseball team started their competition yesterday outside, so the weather is barely good enough to play ball. So we have begun, and hopefully they'll be able to get in their full season without having to play double headers and weekends and all of that craziness. Some other updates that you have probably heard about, but we haven't had a board meeting since. Our high school, for the second year in a row, has been named a Project Lead the Way Distinguished School. In our Project Lead the Way programs, which include computer science, biomedical science, and engineering, Hendrick Hudson is one of only 2 high schools in the entire state to receive the distinction each of the past 2 years, which is a major accomplishment. And the high school is just one of 426 high schools nationally to receive the distinction. And how do you get this distinction? You have to have 25% of your students or more participate in a Project Lead the Way course. You meet that threshold. And you have to have 70% of the students that take a course score proficient or higher on the end of course assessment, which essentially is a final exam written by Project Lead the Way, but also endorsed by Rochester Institute of Technology. So that is a legit assessment.
Awesome.
It's a very outstanding honor for our high school.
Can I just ask a very quick question? Because somebody brought it up to me, that we used to have, banners outside of the high school that kind of delineated
Yep.
the awards that our high school and the achievements that they had won. Is there any way that we could do something?
They're inside the high school.
Okay,
So
because
both-
it used to be
Yep,
outside, so
yep,
people
yep,
driving
they're
through, the
inside the high
community
school.
could see that.
Yeah, they're inside the high
like the
school
boards
because
and
weather
stuff.
was ripping
Yeah,
the old
remember?
ones down and would look dilapidated. So
When you
the
walk
idea
in the
was when we
front,
put,
yeah.
when we put the digital signage board out front.
And is that on?
Oh, yes, that's
Okay.
on it, but inside in the big main cavernous foyer, you'll see those banners.
Because I had somebody ask me about it, and I said that I would ask you.
Yep,
before you
yep,
did.
that's why, just
So-
to,
Good.
Do the students get college credits for doing project legally?
yeah, they have to take and pass the exam for certain schools. Yeah, certain schools will accept it, will accept the credit. If they meet the requirement, they'll get credit from RIT, and then it's up to whatever schools they go to, whether or not A, they're accepted, B, if they're accepted into the program to study, or C, if they're accepted as an elective. So the credit is a guarantee based on your outcome. Transferability is really a supply and demand conversation based on where you go. This past weekend, our first ever String Fling event.
Oh
It
my
was a
goodness.
district-wide orchestra concert,
That was
which
wonderful.
we have been talking about for a really, really long time. I grew up in a community that did this every year, and they rotated. Strings one year, band another, and chorus another, and everyone was on a 3-year rotation. So we had more than 250 musicians representing all 5 schools. It was in the high school gym. We had an all-district 4th grade orchestra, all-district 6th grade orchestra, a 6th and 7th grade, or 6th grade orchestra, and a mixed 7th and 8th grade orchestra. We had the middle school contemporary orchestra and the high school string quartet and high school orchestra perform, and then they all got together for one unified tune at the end. So the music department, strings, choral, vocal, and instrumental, have been doing a really great job at marketing their programs to keep kids interested in their instrument, especially as they leave 5th grade, and in particular as they leave 8th grade. So this was one opportunity for kids to see what a performance will look like when you get older, but also for parents, because sometimes parents will decide, oh, okay, you did it for 2 years, you served your sentence, you can go take other classes, or the high school has all these wonderful classes, you don't have time to take an instrument. So it was also a subliminal message to parents to keep their kids involved so they could hear the older kids playing. So that was wonderful. Our capital project is up and moving. In fact, today we had a pre-bid walkthrough. Pre-bid walkthrough is when contractors or businesses who want to bid on the work can come and ask questions. They can look at the space, they can investigate it, so they can determine what their best bid would be. That's just one more step as we move closer to breaking ground after we receive state approval.
When do we
Yeah.
expect to hear when do we expect to make a decision as to which contracting company will be used?
So the bids will come in, we'll review the bids, it's a public process, we'll probably do it down here. There's a date and a time specific when we open the bids, we review them, and then we'll work with our architect, our engineer, and our construction manager, who will give us some of the background. Oh, I've worked with these guys, they're real good. Oh, I worked with these guys, I don't know if they can pull this off. So they'll help advise us as consultants. And the misnomer is that people believe when you do a public bid, it's the lowest bid. It's the lowest responsible bid. And that word responsible is very, very important and holds a lot of weight because we do reference checks. Sometimes we do site visits. And the architects, engineers, and construction managers work in a lot of districts, so they see their work and they have a relationship with some or others. And sometimes that value is worth a few extra dollars.
And that was a discussion with the safety committee as well, is to make sure, that we have reputable people that are working.
Yep. My last update before I turn it over to the team is a press conference is scheduled for tomorrow at the Village of Buchanan at 2:30. And we are announcing, myself, the town supervisor, and the village mayor are announcing a community advisory panel. This will be established to be a communication vehicle as Indian Point begins its decommissioning. The advisory panel will enhance open communication, public involvement, as well as educate the community in the decommissioning process. This panel will evaluate and comment upon data and other information by Indian Point and other sources. and we'll accomplish three things. We'll make information publicly available regarding the balance of the Indian Point Decommissioning Trust Fund, so there'll be fiscal oversight. They'll provide updates regarding the status of decommissioning activities, and three, will monitor the filings submitted to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission or any other agency. So similar to the panel or the task force that the governor appointed me to, but this is going to be focused not on what happens as Indian Point slows down operation. This panel is going to be a conduit to really be a watchdog as to when they physically dismantle the campus. So that will be announced tomorrow at 2:30, and we will share the panel with the mayor, the supervisor, the assemblywoman, state senator, county executive, and all the other dignitaries. So the school district will have a seat at that table because that's going to be very, very important. How Indian Point operates, or how the decommissioning company operates as they take over. And with that, I'll turn it over to Margaret for some updates.
I was at spring fling. It was really awesome. Claude and Samantha and Lauren did a fabulous job. I caught them in rehearsals, I think at Frank G. the week before or the week before that, and I was able to get over there, and they really did a beautiful job. All the kids did a beautiful job. And I think they were excited to be there. You know, the little kids always like being with the big kids, so they felt special. And I think the crowd was very excited to be able to see the age right across. So good idea. I know they've been working hard at getting that off the ground. And Lauren and Samantha knew each other before they ended up working in Hen HUD. So they rekindled that relationship, and it is paying off. We are getting busy to look at summer programs. So I'm hoping that we'll have the flyer ready, the registration flyer ready for the Summer Fun program, which is a little scaled back this year because of all the construction. But Hen HUD Library is hosting us, so Beth Gruber has been working on aligning who the instructors are for our kids' experiences, so we'll try to get that out quickly. And then looking at all the programs that run over the summer and which kids get invited to what, getting all the staff in place. The next step will be studying which kids actually sign up for it, and then looking to align instruction and resources to that. So that's that piece, and then Lisa and I are going to be working tomorrow on trying to get the SEL launch in place for our May 14th early release day with our elementary staff. Today we had our first meeting of K-8 math teachers, and it was a limited group, so we had 4, 5, and the middle school. And just an introductory meeting to kind of get to know each other, because even though we're all employees, we sometimes don't know each other. You know, we don't see the middle school people, they don't see us. So we got together and we talked about some areas of concern that we have as kids move through the grades. And then the next step will be figuring out how do we want to address this, what's the next step forward for us. It was a nice meeting for people to get, just to kind of know each other and get comfortable having the conversation. So it will get larger. We didn't have the high school people at this one. We didn't have K-3. So, you know, as we move along, it'll get a little bigger. But this was a core group that had spoken to me. And I think we had Cindy Kramer, who was here earlier for the tenure piece, was also present. So I think, you know, there are some good conversations to have around that as we continue to move forward there.
So, Laura and I got to meet with the assistive tech team. I'm not sure if you remember, but we started that last year, and we really got it kicked off this year. So most assistive tech evals are about $3,000 when we put them out. This year they did 25 in-house, so we've saved about $75,000. But just the work they've put in, the trials they're putting in, it's just amazing to see the work. So it's Jean Gizmervik, Jess Van Valkenburg, and Casey Howe are our team. They go into the classrooms, they're doing PD with teachers, they're doing trials with students. Once we trial, and find out what works for the student. It could be as easy as a Post-it note, as assistive tech, or it could be teaching them how to use Google Read and Write extension. So there's a lot of things happening. We really need to work on PD next year and how do we weave that into our PD, but that team has just really expanded and done such an amazing job. Excuse me, Laura, hi. Excuse me. spoke to them about, we're looking into seeing, as we move into computer-based testing, that's something we're going to have to start piloting and planning for next year, and, with probably execution of the year following. So really looking into state regulations, how can we use some of the programs that are out there to give the students what they need, talking about some of how their IEPs, speech to text, there's lots of applications that are out there, but trying to align all that and communicate with everybody.
And how to merge the tech team with this team is going to be our next goal.
So last year, we talked to you about changing the way we do special ed K-5, and we talked about ICT with the skills class and really merging. So I'm happy to say we've seen major gains this year. Our reading has looked like this over the last few years. We're now seeing our reading and our math scores go up. Based on evidence from the iReady, we have kids that don't normally grow more than 20 points a year. In the last 5 months, majority of the kids are growing 40 to 60 points, which the iReady queen will tell you that's quite a bit to see our kids growing, especially students with disabilities. F&P scores, I was talking to a teacher the other day, and she goes, oh yeah, he started at this level, but he's now almost on grade level. So to see the difference in doing smaller classes and giving them time, the students wrote me a note and told me that they're building their self-esteem, they're able to feel comfortable participating in classes, so it's just a great experience. So we will definitely continue that next year. It's the ICT Skills K-5. We've been looking at our incoming kindergartners. Last year, I think I shared with you, we had about 48 of them coming in. This year we only have about 20, and of those 20, we're seeing that those K-1 kids need more than what we have. So we're going to have to look at our ICT program, start combining a couple teachers, and so we have some extra staff so we can start a K-1 12-on-1 because those kids need more than the ICT classes. So we are looking, I think we have 8 students ready to go into that class for next year, which will be housed at Furnace Woods. So those are my updates. So technology-wise, we are, at the point now where we're really kind of narrowing down and trying to identify what tech we need for next year. As I mentioned, the last board meeting, Frank G is getting upgrades next year, so going to be pulling teachers from that school and really trying to narrow down exactly what devices we want. My EduTech staff and I are researching Chromebooks, looking to see the Chromebooks that we purchased last year, really trying to identify best bang for a buck, what's going to last, have a good, shelf life for us and really last for us. And talking about all of the technology, including printers and panels and things that we need. Monday, Tech Education came down and did 2 half-day trainings with, in the morning they did it with the elementary staff, and in the afternoon they did it with secondary staff. So if you remember the last meeting, we had the demo panel here. Sadly, that's been taken away from us. It was just short loan.
Buy one.
What?
Buy one.
Yeah. They really were excited, the elementary staff. It was great to have all 3 schools in one place so they could really share what they've been doing, ask questions, oh, I'm doing this, but how do I do this? And learning new tips and tricks that come with the panels. Especially with the elementary, they've been really exploring the casting to the Chromebooks to and from. And you guys saw me do that with my iPad, but the kids are able to really have control. So that's really cool. And the secondary, it's interesting how there's real differences in their needs and what they use. Because the kids at the high school and the middle school are a lot more independent, they're looking into ways that they can make the panels really allow for that individualized, personalized learning. Even if the teacher's not there, they can send work to the panel from home. The kids can have access to using the Smart Learning Suite. So it was cool to see what they were doing. They still have more questions. They're excited, but they're already in the process of planning turnkeying to their fellow staff members. They've been trying to bring teachers in that don't know how to use some of the tools and teach them. And so we're going to try to formalize probably a little bit more trainings around that. On the HR side, it's hiring season. So if you look on Ocelots, there are a lot of positions that are posted. So we're in the process of screening resumes, looking to see who's out there. So it's a busy time of year for that. We're looking for, we're staffing right now for ESY for the summer. A lot of the programs that Margaret oversees and running. and just managing our day-to-day, hiring for this year as we have people going out on leaves for various reasons. And the big thing too is that Fran Dodaro and Diane Tandy have been working hard behind the scenes setting up our digital onboarding program, Power Schools, which is a big push that a lot of schools in the area are going to be going to. So the goal is to go all digital, so teachers' files, all staff files will be paperless. So it's taking a lot of work on their end to create the forms or replicate the forms that we currently have, so that when a new staff gets hired, they'll do everything online. So we're going to have a guinea pig in a couple weeks that we're going to start with. But it's a lot of work right now, but I think in the long run it's going to save us a lot of time, save us a lot of money, and save us a lot of physical space as well, because we no longer will have the old school filing cabinets. Everything will be accessible online. And there's a lot of security behind it as well. So, and we've been looking, even Enrique and a few of us have been looking to see a lot of the technology now where it's going, and a lot of information is being stored online with very secure servers, but moving away from paper altogether. So.
And the board members have been spending time upstairs in executive session. You've seen over the last 4 months the transformation of files in the hallway, files no longer in the hallway. We've reorganized some of the office spaces upstairs to create more space, and that also is the same process as we digitize files that we need to keep for records retention. So we're trying to get out of the paper business and keep things digital.
So instead of having
teachers' files are now stored digitally?
They will be.
There will be.
Retired teachers, staff that no longer work here, those have been scanned through BOCES and are digital. So that's where a lot of that space got cleared up. And then what we're working on right now with Power Schools is that current staff will all be online. So for example, every form that a teacher needs to fill in, whether it's a course request for something they want to take, it's transcripts, it's letters that have been written about them, anything that goes in their file, it could be this thick. So you think about each person and we have to hold on to them. So that also disappears and will be all online. So you'll have digital folders.
And very
and
accessible.
they can access it. Then certain things that they can access will be available for them as well, which is nice.
What about the children's crates? We used to keep all the files. And what are we doing with the student data?
This is just for staff.
Right.
Yeah.
How do we destroy the old files? Once you're done
BOCES.
with them?
BOCES is doing.
BOCES is doing
Yeah.
it?
We pay BOCES to come, pick them up, digitize them, and destroy them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're very easily accessible online. It's really simple too, if you're looking for a record or.
We all can find them.
Yeah.
No.
That's going to make Corey quit.
No.
It's a joke.
I know it was a joke. I know it was a joke.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. Sounds like some very exciting things are happening here. Okay, next we move on to committee reports. Anybody? Okay, I know.
I always have one, right? Well, as Barbara mentioned, she and I went to the safety committee meeting. The schools are doing their school emergency response teams. The CERT teams are receiving additional training from Alteris. And we also discussed the new phones that are in the placement of where they should be in the classrooms, so that they're secure and people can be where they need to be and have access to their phones.
And teachers also have to be, cognizant that they have to request if they want a phone placed in a certain area. So, just a reminder.
Some schools have completed, others are in the process of numbering doors and classrooms for emergency responders to make sure those are all visible for them. And Mr. Merlini also shared some training opportunities that are available through BOCES for our staff. And then the other thing that I went to was this educational law workshop held through the Westchester Putnam School Board Association. And it was a whole morning long, and it was packed with lots of really good information. The main points that were covered were topics of navigating the Board of Ed, superintendent, school attorney relationship, focus on student wellness and emerging issues related to that at the New York State level, education of children in foster care in New York State, sexual harassment and child abuse in an educational setting, gender equity in interscholastic athletics, open meeting laws, and then we also talked about contract negotiations and issues in terms of that. So it was a lot of topics, and I really found it to be very, very helpful for me to understand what's going on.
They do a very good job.
They do,
So we're very,
yeah.
very, very fortunate to have them. It's wonderful. Thank you. Anybody else?
Mary Pat, Bill, and I attended the Finance Committee meeting yesterday, which we'll be discussing later. And unfortunately, I was not able to make the Blue Mountain Middle School meeting this week due to conflict. Policy, we have a policy tonight we're discussing.
I couldn't make the Frank J. either this month, so. Next month will be, it's a tough month for board members, so. Anyway, now we are extremely fortunate to have two presenters to present to us about the elementary library program.
So Megan and Cooper are with us. They are elementary library classroom specialists. They have agreed on an annual basis to leave the traditional classroom and provide leadership to across our 3 libraries. And today's discussion is to give you an update on the transformation of what kids are doing, what they're expected to do in the library, really through the STEM lens. So over the last number of months, the board has been accepting donations from various agencies, from the HHCPF, from New York Life, from all different groups that are helping us fund and provide funding for new technology, software, equipment for these ladies to really flip the script on what a traditional library used to be and really put more oomph into the media science of library. Because the official title of anyone who works in a library in a New York State public schools, they're a library media specialist. And sometimes we get stuck on the books and the process and not a whole lot on the media part. So they're here to give us an update on what's different in the library and how tech savvy they've become. So welcome.
Hi, good
She
evening.
was always tech savvy, may I just
Thanks, Barbara. Thank you for having us. I'm Newport Polish. I've been doing the library classroom specialty for the last 3 years. Prior to that, I was a classroom teacher for 20 years at BV. So now I'm working in the library at Furnace Woods and at BV, and it's been really exciting. And I'm going to let Megan introduce herself.
I'm Megan. This is my first year in the library. Before that, I had been in 2nd grade and then 5th grade and a bunch of different places in BV for about 3 years. And right now I'm in Frank G as a librarian and also a day at Furnace Woods.
So we share the 3 elementary libraries with Susan McCormick as well. And so this year we had the unique opportunity to apply for the HHCEF grant, which allowed us to purchase quite a few different things that we're going to talk to you about this evening. So we're just going to switch to the next slide, and we're going to just talk a little bit about the evolution of the library program.
So with the evolution of the library, we will always be focused on the informational literacy and research skills, but we kind of shifted and added to our curriculum in the areas of technology. We focused on 2 of the 5 leadership goals, student empowerment and instructional repertoire. We really wanted to give the students a chance to be more creative, really give their own voice to certain things. We do a lot of exploratory learning, so a lot of these programs allow the students to be the ones in charge, and it gave us a chance to step back and say, okay, you're going to figure this out, which is hard as teachers in general, and really get to see what they were thinking and they were learning. And the transition from what they started with at the beginning of our programs to now, I had a little girl say to me, oh, I got this, when she made a mistake, and in the beginning she would have cried. So that was big, and that's something that really has helped us, or happened through the evolution.
So this year we used grant money to purchase some different programs and equipment that would benefit all the students from kindergarten through 5th grade. The 3 things are, and we'll talk about each one of them separately, but just as an overview, we purchased subscriptions and kits to Breakout Edu, which if you've ever been to an escape room, this is where an escape room meets classroom curriculum. And Codable is a computer science coding software program that allows children to use block
code and JavaScript to write programs. And Ocelots are little robots that the students can code in multiple different ways, from using markers. The different colors represent different commands. Or there's also an online program called Ozo-Blockly where they can use drag and drop blocks of code to then program the robots to do different things. So for each of the 3 elementary schools, we purchased a school-wide subscription to Codable. We purchased school-wide subscriptions for multiple users to the Breakout Edu platform, which we'll talk a little bit more about, and actual kits, which we brought one with us today, and Ozobots. So we're going to talk about those. Actually, we're going to ask you to participate in a short breakout this evening. So put your thinking caps on. Yeah, you can put that. So this is the breakout box. That was why we were so noisy coming in. We were trying to be discreet. So ideally, the box would have. Thank you, Laura. Would have a hasp. You'll see. So the hasp allows you to put multiple different types of locks on it. So there are numerical locks. There are locks that have you can spell words with, colors, shapes, direction locks. So if you can kind of see in the picture, the children there, they're working on one of like 6 locks to try to break open the box. So we have clues for you. If you we won't make you work too hard. I know it's late in the day. You can work with a partner.
Not me.
Not that, yeah, you can still work with a
You don't want the business official to be doing this.
That's exactly who we want to be doing this. Are you kidding?
You want the board to be confident in the money.
So this is what you're looking at in front of you is a clue that would help you to unlock. This is a 3-digit lock. There's also we use the program to create a digital version. So there are all these digital breakouts that you can do as well. So this is actually the same combination. If you can figure out the combination, it would be the same combination up there as it would be to this lock. So ideally, we would give students a lot more time, but the idea is for them to collaborate with their classmates and try to figure out without us really telling them anything. Literally, we will just like we gave you these papers and are showing you this on the screen. That is it. So it's really a question of looking at what you have in front of you and figuring out what could 3 numbers be. And there's different ways. There's different ways to do it. So I had a teacher. It was me and Mrs. Pereira doing it together, and we said, "Oh, we know how to get this one." And a group of students came up to us and said, "It's this." I was like, "Yeah, that's it." And they were like, "But we got it going X, Y, and Z way." We were like, "We got it going." Like, we didn't even know what they were talking about. We had to have them teach it to us. So there's different ways to think about it, and it really brings out your different critical thinking skills.
Can you use the same number twice?
Yes.
Thank you. How many thank yous?
Can you or do you?
Can you?
For this one, no. But you will not.
Can I?
But you could. Can in general. Conceivably, you could.
Okay,
Yes.
but for this one, you can't.
For this one, there are 3 different numbers.
So many yous.
Thank you.
Did you use separate?
Bad idea. Bad idea here.
This is what makes board meetings run long. Teachers like us making you do work.
No.
So then if you can.
And there's no, just so you know, there's no opting out in the classroom, okay? Everybody has to work.
One,
Are you fun?
I think it's the number.
Do you think you have it? Do you think you have it? Yeah, we did it. Are you give them actual things? All right, so we'll give you a hint. Typically we give 2 hints in a session. So the thank you HHCEF on the left side is the clue, let's say, not the answer.
Oh, we're giving them the answer. Let them think.
But that is the hard part with students is because they very much, when they ask for a hint, they don't want a hint. They want the answer. So they really get sometimes frustrated, like with my hints, because they want me to tell them exactly, what it is.
5.
Oh, I hear some good collaborating going on.
That's your this is your base code. So your base code is you gotta keep it. Oh, okay, right.
Thank you.
What's wrong with you?
I'm going to do 10 minutes.
So 5, 6.
It doesn't
I
matter.
want one.
Doesn't matter, you're done.
I think it's a 5, 4, and a 7 in some order.
4, 7,
Set a buzzer.
What time? I am.
4, 7, 5.
All right, let's try it. Megan's gonna do it on that lock. I'm gonna do it on
Like that.
here.
I thought you said something else.
No, I said 5 points.
Yay.
Yay!
You did it.
So you gotta count.
You put
So-
two accountants together.
Right, that's what we do, okay.
What's
that's
in the
right.
box when they
So typically what would be in the box for students is they would get like a certificate, a congratulatory certificate, and then it could be anything like bookmarks. It could just be, sometimes we use it to launch like what the next thing you're going to learn is. So, and in our case, we actually do have a box that's locked inside the box because, but what we
Few hints.
So what we have actually in here is all the things that kind of come with the kit. So this would be the hasp that you could fix on the outside, and then there are different types of locks that come with it. This is like a decoder kind of thing, so you can have different kinds of clues. There's a pen, so you could write like a message on there, and then you could use like the flashlight, and it would show you like a secret message. All right, remember that secret message. There are also, one of the nice things about it is they come with debriefing cards, so that at the close of the lesson you can choose the cards to help start a conversation. So like this one, how did your group work well together? So that there's an opportunity to debrief and talk about things that worked well. So there's all different kind of cards in here with things like that. Did you want to add something?
Something that I like about it too is, yes, you can do the problem solving like this, but there's also content specific ones. So I had a 2nd grade class doing one just about money the other day, and every problem focused on money. Kelly Leonardo's class, the 1211 class, uses this all the time because it's hands-on and it's manipulative, but they did one on the days of the week the other day, and just like different things that you can really use for content, but also being able to do it in a different way.
So there's the kit, and then there's an online version. So I'm going to actually take you to the teacher end of it. So here you can see this is part of what we purchased with the grant money, is subscriptions to this, which is a platform which has all these games that are breakout games that have been created that go along with all different content areas. So they're all different types of games that you can choose from. Some of them are physical games where you would use a kit like this, and some of them are online games that would have multiple locks, similar to what I showed you before. And then the nicest part of it is that you can also, with this subscription, teachers can create their own games to match with curriculum or match with whatever it is that they would want to create a game for. And there's also, which I just started using with a 5th grade class, students can learn how to make these games also and create them and play the games that they've created. So there are really a lot of interesting avenues from this program.
Okay, so Codable is the second thing that we purchased. Codable is an online game that the students can learn the basics of coding. So when I first started, Mrs. McCormick told me her first lesson that she does with coding. She stands in front of the room and asks the students to tell her how to get to a certain point in the room. And what they always end up doing was, well, just walk. And then you have to learn, no, you have to take 5 steps, and they learn really that you have to give more direction. And that has led us into using Codable. That was kind of our introduction. The students can use it they have to get their fuzzball through a maze, but they have to learn to give it direction. And then once they do that a few times, they get to use JavaScript to create their own fuzz.
So we have 2 short videos that will show you of students. So it's okay, the sound. It's just really kind of showing what. Okay. Thanks, Joe. Although this one might have sound, because I think this is, I asked the kids.
Boys and girls, do you like using Codable?
Yeah! I didn't prompt them for that.
That was their natural answer. But they do really enjoy it.
They do.
And these are just two examples of things that they can create using JavaScript. And so one program is the Maze Maker, which you can see on the left. So that student used a combination of blocks and JavaScript to create that maze. And then on the right, so the little characters in Codable are called fuzz. You can create your own fuzz. So that was one that was created there. And then just so you can see the gaming platform from the student side. So this is the game. We'll just take a minute or two just to show it to you, so you have an idea.
Age group are you doing this with?
K-5.
Maybe really loud.
So there are different lessons and modules. So it's not everybody's not doing the same thing. Sorry, that's like the aircraft that you're hearing there. So for example, it's different planets. So Speedboard is really more of a primary tool, and then Asteroidia and Bug World are a little more sophisticated. But it just begins. Just skip to something here. So they're dragging and dropping these little things to program the fuzz to get through the maze. And then it gets trickier and trickier. I'm just going to close it because it's super loud. It gets trickier as they progress through, so it becomes more challenging. They're introduced to things like conditions, like if-then scenarios. You know, if you can go left or right, what would you do? Loops, so that they learn how to repeat program. It's really interesting, and the students really enjoy doing it. So Ocelots are the last thing that we purchased. These are my favorite, they're so fun. So it's a screen-free way of them learning how to code. So they can, again, with the idea of giving technology direction, you're trying to teach tell this robot where to go. That's what I say to my kindergartners. How do you tell it where to go? You can't look at the robot and say go. It won't do that, so we have to give it a sense of direction. So they write with the markers, and the markers will teach or tell the robot where to go. And once they learn the basics of that, then they learn that if I put the colors in a certain order, the robot will do certain tricks. So this is a lot of where the creativity came in. I had my second graders making cities for their Ocelots, and that helped with directional things too, because they had to learn, well, at a stop sign, this is what you're supposed to do. If I want to go left and right, what am I supposed to do? So it was a lot of incorporating different things, but it gives them a lot of freedom and a lot of creativity while still learning the idea of coding. And we actually did bring some with you, but does anybody remember what the combination is to this lock? It's on here.
Was it like
O-Z-O and then there were two.
And then two squares. So this lock is, it was a combination of letters and shapes that you can do. I'm going to let Megan do it for me because I can't see without my glasses. But we brought some Ocelots, and we also brought, some of my students today made some little sheets that you can see, like, they really get to use their creativity. So this student created and used what you'll see. This is like one of the students made like a little maze, and where you're seeing multiple colors, this is a sheet that shows all the different types of commands that you can give the Ocelot to tell it to spin like a tornado, to make a left turn at an intersection. One of the things, so here are Ocelots. One of the things that Ocelots do is they make some decisions on their own. So if you draw an intersection on a paper and you don't give it direction, it might not go the way you want it to go. So that's part of the fun. So those are EVOs. They have sensors on them. So one of the challenges we did in the library was they had to make a maze, but they had to have obstacles. So the EVO would sense an obstacle and it would turn around because it knows it can't go any further. BIT is a different version. This is a little bit less sophisticated. The other thing about, I don't want to drop it, the EVOs will communicate with each other. So if you do you want to put two down? We have other, like the kids drew all kinds of things. If you put two and they get together, they like talk to each other. And then we tell them one is bossing the other one around. So that one turned around. So some of the things that we did with them was, create an obstacle, have tunnels, but they had to make a tunnel that was wide enough and tall enough that the sensor didn't make it stop. And so BIT doesn't do quite
as much of the interactive piece. Well, it still interacts, but it'll do its own thing. But it won't. So now the Evo is stopping because he's sensing Bit, but Bit's just going to plow on through. But as you can imagine, the children really enjoy. So somebody had to speed up code, and what they do is they have sensors. Now they can travel across the table. They have sensors on the bottom, and the sensors sense light. So they're looking for the color changes, and they're reading the code through the sensors underneath them.
So you do this like when they would normally have like their special time, their library time.
So right, so what library kind of looks like is the students come in, we do, our introductions and our hellos. Part of the period is spent students selecting books. Depending on what time of the year it is, we obviously need to hit all the library curriculum pieces. But we launched a lot of this stuff. Okay, calm down. When the International Hour of Code Week in December was the launch of our computer science unit. So Codable and the Ocelots were a big part of that. It did probably stretch a little longer this year just because it was really a new opportunity for a lot of the children and they really wanted to keep doing it. So we finished it and now we're doing some research and other things. But it is part of the library class. These are the opportunities that they get.
If I pick their books up, they don't care. They probably just like grab anything.
Sometimes sometimes we have to say okay, 15 minutes, everybody is finding a book because you're right. They'll just say, forget it, I don't want to because I or they'll say I'm not getting a book. And we're like, no, you are.
The library media science certification is a dying breed in New York State.
Yeah.
It's I don't even think there's one, Margaret, maybe you know of one university or college in New York State that has even the certification.
There still is. Syracuse has that.
Syracuse, okay. I know we have a lot of people that would go to Penn State or would have to leave out of state. So when you look at the standards of what the state is asking kids to do, these are all there, maybe written in the 80s and 90s, but the demand on technology, the critical thinking skills, working in a team, all of those things, this is a great opportunity for all of those skills to come together and still, support literacy initiatives.
No, I appreciate that. What I was going to say, to be honest with you, there's probably an argument to expand it beyond just that hour a week or so that they actually added library time because it's this, maybe not the little codables, but this is the future.
It links K to 12 when you see what we want the kids to do, especially in like AP computer science. These are all the foundations
of it. Yeah, but I mean, there's such sponges now.
No, yeah, I agree.
It's like this is like teaching them.
This
is the time to teach them a foreign language as
exactly.
well. Like I mean,
it is like a foreign language.
It is, but I'm saying that this is in lieu of.
This year, the library program at K-5 we experimented with what we called an encore piece. So each class had one class a week, and then on a trimester, they had an extra class. It's just the way the schedule broke out, and it gave Newber and Megan and Susan, who isn't here, an opportunity to try things like this and incorporate it without disrespecting the library curriculum that they have to address, that they're required to do. So, I had some feedback from Meg, just because we had some time together a few weeks ago to see how has that gone, what's significant. Alongside the library program, Valaire has really turned her enrichment piece into a completely STEAM focus. So those kids are having those experiences with her, however often she's seeing them. So, I think it's all of our goal to expand that.
This is so universal.
Of course.
These are the children that may not be traditionally like your bookworms or whatever. They're kids that are going to just fly in that.
Well, and to see a kindergarten child doing coding,
Yeah.
I mean, who would have ever thought back, even 5 years ago?
I was going to say,
it's just, I think it's all developing so quickly.
And that was part of the reason that when we wrote the grant, we tried not just to get things that we would use in the library, like the Codable, they can do it in the classroom when they have, centers or time. They can do it from home. Mm-hmm. That's why with the Breakout, as much as, being a former classroom, both of us coming from the classroom, we know like the commitments of elementary classroom teachers are really, really ridiculous, and it's difficult to fit anything else in. But we just wanted to give them, you know, any other extra kind of strategies or help, and we thought that if we got these additional subscriptions for other teachers besides the teachers in the library, that they would have that opportunity to do more of it, because you're right, it's such a small amount of time we have with
It
them.
could also be a carrot and stick. I mean, these kids, it's focus, and then we can do this.
Yes.
And it's,
I mean, like I said, the 1211 uses this probably every other week, and they use it to do curriculum, but it's just another way for them to be stimulated. I get pictures all the time of what they're doing, and like Kelly and I talk, it's so good to see them come and be able to do it. The same with Codable. When they push in, they're doing it too, and they're just as engaged, they're just as excited. They made the Ocelot cities, so it really does touch a lot of different kids, and they're all able to do it together. I don't have to think, oh, I make sure to look at them because they're gone. They can do it themselves, they don't need me, and they're doing a great job just like everyone else. So.
And it reaches kids, you know, you don't have to be able to read to do this, you know, like you draw with a marker. So it really, you know, for some kids, and even with the breakout kids, again, it's not like you have to, okay, you know, read this chapter and write a thesis about it. It's more, you know, you're just looking at these things and trying to figure it out. And some of the kids that I've seen struggle the most academically are the ones that we've seen be the most successful with things like this. So it's really, we enjoy doing it, but we also, it's so fulfilling to watch the students do it and enjoy it and come into library and be excited. You know, one of the first questions, are we doing Ocelots today? Like, what, you know, what are we doing? What are we doing? I'm like, okay, calm down. I'm going to tell everybody at the same time. But
you're getting a book.
Yeah, exactly. First you're getting a book, and then we'll talk. But it's just, you know, that was really, it's really been great, and we really wanted something that everybody could use. And we're very thankful to the HHCEF and all the PTAs for all the fundraising that they did to really allow us to replicate this at all 3 elementary schools, so everybody's getting it. We had pieces of it that already existed, but everybody didn't have everything, and now all 3 schools, thanks to the grant, have kind of access to all of this, and it's been fun for everybody.
And it's also because of who these two are.
Right.
5 years ago, we started the Tech Coach concept about having in-house people that could be mentors, sort of peer leaders with other teachers around our huge commitment to technology. And Newper was one of the first to take that on, and it was a rough go at first, because it was, okay, you're my peer, but you're also going to coach me and help me, you know, use these new pieces of equipment or software, or implement it in my curriculum. So when we moved in this direction a couple of years ago, it wasn't just about having someone in the space to run the library. It was about someone who could transform the student experience. So Newper has done that and has created that lab sort of space at BV. And then when we had the opportunity to bring Megan on board, her classroom experience and use of technology was paramount. So we're trying to be ahead of the curve, as New York State still says the library media specialist needs to have these credentials. You know, we're trying to change that in terms of what our kindergarten through 5th graders are experiencing. And at the middle school and high schools, we get into phase 2 of our capital construction project. John and Jim are saying, I know we may not have a huge budget for this, but can we talk about the library? Can we talk about making it a multimedia space, a tech hub, a place for kids and teachers to be able to provide these opportunities and not just have it feel like an old traditional library.
That's the future.
Yeah.
And I know
it's
kids.
not the future, it's now.
Well, yeah, but
now.
it's going to get even more
No, but
involved,
I can tell you just personal
Well, I know, I
experience.
see with Jackson.
Any kid who's, no,
you
but
know.
I'm talking even like Jack going up to like college. It's like the coding, it's like that's expected that they go in there knowing this. So I mean, it's like English. You literally, it's something that you need to have ingrained in you, because it's
and
required.
it's so learnable now. I mean, 20 years ago I got my master's in technology, and I remember we had to do, you know, programming, and it was difficult. It was, you know, like, it was really difficult to do. And now when I look at how I'm teaching the students how to, you know, do some I mean, it's the basics of programming. It's not obviously,
8-year-olds.
but
No, it's not.
they
It's
pick it up.
6-year-olds.
Well,
They pick it up so
programming-
quickly.
Programming
Yeah,
is
yeah,
a
yeah.
way of thinking,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Programming is not, you're not learning something by rote, you're learning how to think in a different way.
Right.
And it's a very hard thing, because when you think about what jobs are gonna be in 10 years, your traditional job is gonna get replaced by artificial intelligence. So for kids of the future, the kids have to learn how to be part of that new world, a new way of working.
I was
Right.
just gonna say, with the breakout, you had to take a step back as a teacher and say, no, I can't spoon feed this to you, you have to be able to do it. And now the kids coming into library just naturally have more independence because of the way that I've said, no, you're gonna figure it out, and no, you're gonna do it. They can get themselves, I had a kindergarten class today, get themselves on the databases because they just know that I'm not gonna tell them. And it's a way of changing their thinking and making them more independent in general. So yeah, it's learning how to write code, but it's also the critical thinking, it's
Yeah.
also the collaboration.
Problem solving.
Yeah, so those are the big things too that we try to instill in them.
And, you know, so my children go to Lakeland School District, so neighboring school district. But the one thing I'll say is, you know, I have a 3rd grader and a 6th grader, so I'm often comparing what I see there and what I see here. And I have to tell you, a lot of the things that we're doing here, those opportunities are only limited for enrichment in, you know, some of our neighboring districts. So I just feel really good about being able to offer these opportunities. We both feel good about being able to offer these opportunities to all our students at the K-5 level, and they're all getting the same experience, and they're really growing from it. Just that, exactly what you said with that problem solving and being able to
We have to
kind
come
of
in
figure
and do
things
something.
out, which is so important.
It's exciting. I mean, I still talk about when I first went in and observed your classroom and I saw kids, you know, little first graders. I came back and I said to the board, I can't believe the experience I had in Newber's room. And then I brought Charles with me because, you know, he could see it for himself how, you know, engaged the kids were and independent. And it's just, it's incredible to see this now and what you're able to bring to our students. So thank you both. It's very exciting.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
All right, bravo. Enrique got through the presentation without having to cut the lock off.
We're going to make a special one for him.
Make sure you videotape it.
We'll inter-office it.
Do you want this?
Yeah.
So now that you work with your Ocelots, get your books.
Get your calculator.
Get your books on.
Yeah.
You are so good because of
You've got the timer going.
I got it going. It's already started because you started talking.
It's such a pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Good evening. After this great presentation, now get your books in, I don't know whatever you hate the most, so we can start. We also have students that draw and paint beautifully besides doing all the coding. So in January 9th was our first budget presentation, and we told you that the budget was going to be between 80 million and 80.4. The budget last year was 79. So we ended up even a little bit below what we were expecting on January 9. It's 80 million with 40,000 instead of 74,000. Last year our budget was 79.5, so it's an increase of basically $500,000 or 0.64%. Our preliminary tax levy is very close to what it was supposed to be at the beginning. We got a little bit less state aid than expected. So our tax levy is going to be 43.7 million instead of 43.4 that we thought back in January. Last year was 42, so it's an increase of 2.63%. But on the other hand, our fund balance is a little bit less than expected, so all that money, the difference between the 1.4 and the 1.393, that's $7,000 are going to fund balances. for future. On the cap information, the New York State cap is 2% because inflation was more than 2%, and as you know, the New York State is the lower of the inflation, or 2%. So in this time it was 2%. Our cap, the increase is 2.64. Our tax levy, like we said, 43.7. Our cap 43.741, so we're going to be below the tax cap by $900. Last year our tax cap was 42.6, so it's an increase of 1.1 million, or 2.64. So let's talk a little bit about budget, revenues, and tax levy. As you can see, our non-property tax revenues are starting to go down. And the reason is that last year we used fund balance from debt of $256,000. That was the last portion. Last year we used $2 million. This year we're using 1.393. So our total non-property tax revenues are going down 1.7. Our proposed budget is going up 0.64 to $80 million. We already talked about proposed tax levy and tax. So here you can see a summary of the last 5 years, 6 years, and more. And as you can see, inflation usually has been higher than the New York State tax cap, and our tax cap in the last couple of years it has changed a little bit, and that's because, if you remember, we passed last year our capital project, and that's because there's maturities in our debt from past capital projects, so that goes against our tax cap. In the one below, you can see the budget and tax levies. As you can see, this year and last year, our tax levies were a little bit higher, much higher than our increase in budget, and that last year was because of the way the capital reserve fund work, and this year is because what we've seen in the past. Revenues, here you can see our revenues based, as you can see, tax levy and pilots represent the biggest part. Pilots, if you remember, specifically the energy pilot, used to be 38% of our budget. Today it's only 33%. So obviously most of the difference has gone to the tax levy portion. And here you can see the expenses. First, I put the expenses by code, meaning salaries, bonuses, benefits. As you can see, most of our expenses go to salaries and benefits, about 70% of our expenses. We provide a service, and therefore that's where the money goes. Then, as you know, I always have to present my budget by government accounting. That's divided in administrative, curriculum, and capital budget. And for 11 years that I've been here, our target is to have our curriculum and instruction budget to be 80%. And this year, at least 80%, and this year is 82%. Finally, these are a lot of numbers that probably make no sense for any of you, but the important one is at the bottom, and that means the tax rate increase. So for the town of Portland, the tax rate increase is going to be 2.19, and the tax is $1,000 with 28 cents per 1,000 of assessed value. So let's say that your house is assessed value at $7,000, you pay about $7,100. For the city of Peekskill, our lucky citizens, the tax rate is going to be $476 or a decrease of 4.11%. So you are not going to vote for that, but you're going to vote for the budget, for the proposed budget. And if you vote for the proposed budget of $80,040,270 next week, in 2 weeks, then that's what the changes in the tax rate will be. So this is basically our budget. You still have 2 weeks. Next Friday of next week, you'll get the budget book, so you can review the whole budget process, the whole budget, and if you want to make any changes, you'll have only one chance to do it next week. You and the community.
Are we putting budget books in the community?
Everywhere.
Please?
There's going to be a budget book in every school, in the library,
District
everywhere.
office.
Okay.
And
Because
in the
that's
and in the website.
Okay, good.
So, question or comments? I need a comment from Lisa.
841.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make it next year. Thank you.
So Enrique talked about a couple benchmark dates. We try to lock in our budget at the tax cap. We're coming in under the tax cap. You've heard all of our program budget requests. We have begun the budget newsletter process. A little wrinkle, or a very large wrinkle this year in the process, is it also needs to be translated in Spanish. So everyone will get an English version of the budget and the narrative in terms of the newsletter, and also in Spanish. So we're trying to speed that process along so we can.
So this year I'll understand the budget.
So this year Enrique will understand the budget. So we've been using BOCES for translation services, and that has pushed up our internal processing deadlines by a number of weeks. Roseanne's been shuttling information back and forth and trying to meet the new guidelines.
We're done with that.
Somebody had made a point of saying that if we have a population, a Spanish population, under 5%, you don't have to translate. Is that true?
Not that we know. My
Not that our
understanding
attorneys.
is
Yeah.
is that
We've
every
been advised by
school
our
needs-
attorneys.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
Roseanne
yeah,
goes to
as
board
long as
clerk
we've
workshops.
vetted it
What
with
about
our
other
attorneys.
languages?
No, just
No,
Spanish right now.
Spanish.
Why? I speak.
I don't know. We'll need to talk to the Commissioner of Education. Maybe the husband is Hispanic.
Good Lord. I don't know.
Moving
Okay.
along.
But thank you very much. Does anybody have a comment? Board members, questions? Okay. Then with that, we're on to our next portion of audience comments. Did anybody? No? Okay. Then with that, we are on a policy reading.
This is a second reading of the policy 5225, student personal expression. We discussed this policy at the last meeting. As far as I know, we haven't received any comments from the community or the board members about this. So let me start reading and we'll see if we have any attention. The Board of Education recognizes the importance and value of student
Move for
personal.
further reading.
Thank you. Were
You
there
weren't
any,
gonna do it? What?
No, I read it.
were there
Okay.
any additional comments or questions, concerns about the policy?
So again, this is, as I said last time, it's a NISBA recommended policy, comes off the heels of what schools and attorneys learned about a year ago during the Parkland walkouts, as well as other legal affairs that we should take into consideration in terms of our policy, as well as our code of conduct. Our code of conduct references similar behaviors, and if there are behaviors that take place outside of school and they create a disruption or cause a disruption within the school, they could be subject to discipline. This is of similar nature.
Okay. That being said then, can I please have a motion to accept policy number 5225, student personal expression?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next we're on to board comments. Does anybody have any new business they'd like to discuss?
Well, what I would like to mention that I think just overlooked it was the high school drama production is next weekend. So
Next week.
it's next weekend already.
Already?
Yep, so the tickets, show tickets for you or something, but
The
it's
weekend
legal.
af-
No,
next weekend.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, yes.
See, I'm thinking we have more time.
No,
Me too.
no, it's totally.
That'd be crazy.
No, it's legally blonde, and I'm like any other program, I mean, I've heard nothing, but I have to assume it's gonna be as good as all the rest.
Well, Claire Carey does.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
we're lining up,
children.
we're lining up some of the students to come and do a podcast interview, and the request for taking out an ad went out. If you haven't taken out an ad, you can always donate to the drama club, and they'll start their big push for ticket sales next week.
It's actually out there now.
Yes, it's out there now.
So.
Yeah, they haven't missed a drama production or a musical production in 10 years. They're
I
always
can beat you.
excellent.
Yeah.
Always, I'm sure you can.
I can beat you.
Always excellent.
So embarrassing.
Well, yes,
People
you have a
kids when
whole
they were
row,
little.
every single drama production, even still. So we thank our students and their parents, families, community, everybody that donates to us being able to put on such outstanding productions. Okay, can I please have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second? All in favor?